All right, Lieutenant Hermosillo, here we are, third trial in a third year. Is there anything that you're not, I don't want to say looking forward to, but anything that you're anticipating to come out of this trial?
Nate, I don't think so. I mean, we've heard a lot of what she said. Um, I think it's going to be pretty repetitive from the Idaho trials. I don't think anybody's going to get any new information, maybe little bits and pieces, but I think it's going to be pretty repetitive.
There are, of course, the videos of, Charles going asking for help, and then the videos of Lori on the day that Charles was shot and killed. How vital do you think those pieces of evidence will be to this trial for a jury who has never seen any of this and doesn't know anything about it?
Can you say that one more time? I'm sorry, you cut out a little bit.
Oh yeah, there's the videos of Charles, asking for help, and then the videos of Lori. There's a lot of video in this case
Right.
of Lori the day that Charles was shot, of Charles talking to police about how his wife, was crazy, so to speak. How how do you think that's going to play to jurors who have never seen any of this stuff before?
I mean, it's to me, I think it's going to be pretty damning. With the video with Lori standing outside after Charles was shot by Alex, and she's joking and smiling. I think when a jury sees that, just the lack of disregard for human life, I think that's going to hurt her.
When you think back on the case in Idaho, is there anything that you wish could have been brought in that you guys weren't able to get in at the trial that the prosecution wasn't, or anything that you were really hoping would have made it into the jurors?
That's a good question. There's so much evidence in these cases. I'm sure that there's nothing that sticks out in my mind, but there's so much evidence. I could be forgetting something. There were terabytes and terabytes of information that we had gone through. We have, and so I'm sure in those terabytes of information, there are some things that I wish came in. I wish a little bit more of the Arizona stuff would have come in just a little bit, but I don't think we needed it.
What do you think of Lori representing herself?
It's going to be interesting, right? Hopefully she has somebody that is kind of coaching her with court procedure and policy. I think it's going to be longer, maybe than people expect, just because there's going to be some trial and error on her part on what she can say and what she can't say and what the prosecutors object to and things they allow. I'm sure they're going to give her a little bit more leeway than they would just a normal defense attorney, but it's going to be interesting to see how she maneuvers through that.
Right. Yeah. I've heard judges try to really be careful on a pro se defendant just because there's always appellate issues and you don't want to miss one little thing up and have a retrial.
Right.
What have you thought of her behavior thus far? I don't know if you've seen any of the hearings to date.
I haven't seen any of the hearings. I've seen bits and pieces, and it's Lori. I mean, there's nothing she can say surprises me anymore at this point. Her actions are have been the same throughout the last 5 years. Just the lack of disregard, there's no remorse. It's everybody else's fault. She has no fault, no blame in anything. That's kind of been her MO this entire time. So the things I see on TV, I really haven't followed too closely down in Arizona, but the things I've seen, that's Lori.
Is that the same thought you had watching Dateline?
Yeah, it is because you forget I've listened to her speak in jail phone calls.
Mm.
And so and everybody really hasn't because that's not public record. But it's kind of the same thing, right? She's talking about the same things, her um just her lack of remorse or just the nonchalant attitude, like there's and it's a game and it's funny, and the manipulation. I've heard that day in and day out on those jail phone calls. So when I see her on TV on Dateline, kind of spouting the same thing, it's no surprise to me.
So you're saying the behavior we've seen and heard from her, it's not like that's a show. That's what you're hearing on those jailhouse calls when she was talking to Chad.
Absolutely. Yeah, it may be a show, right? But she's been putting on this show for the last 5 years. It's the same Lori that I've listened to for months.
So when she would talk with Chad, did it appear like was she the one wearing the pants, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think she was, they both manipulated each other in different ways. But when it came down to it, and she's the one who kind of guide not guided. That's a poor choice of words. They both manipulated each other. She probably manipulated a little bit more because she was better at it than Chad.
Hmm. I spoke with Rachel Smith, and she said it was interesting to see Lori during jury selection in Idaho with men, potential jurors. With her behavior, and that there was some jurors you felt she'd tell her attorney she really wanted certain guys on there. Do you think now that she's her own defense attorney, are we going to see more of that with she has a different appeal or a different way she acts with men versus women?
Absolutely. I mean, Lori's been like that. She uses that sex appeal to manipulate, right? And to get what she wants. And so when these guys would come in that she wanted, now she has more authority than she did, I think, when Jim and John were representing her because they were her defense attorneys and they kind of looked out for her best interest. But now that she's her own attorney, she gets to say who she wants and who she doesn't. And there's no pushback if she wants the wrong one. And it's super important with the jury selection. I mean, that's where this whole case starts, right? In court, you have to pick that jury and you have to do it the right way. And it's super important to get the right jurors. So I think I think she's going to go after a certain type, yes.
Hmm. Are you going to watch?
I don't know. It's a good question. I'll probably watch a little bit of it. I probably won't watch the whole thing. Um, I'll watch a little bit just to see how what the vibe is, the atmosphere, how she's doing as far as representing herself. Um, yeah, I'll watch a few
Is
days of
it
it.
is it part of the reason you don't want to watch? I mean, I don't want to say you're kind of over it, but that chapter in your life is kind of done, and it consumes so much of you that now you're like, another one, and then another one after that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll always have this case, right? I'll always be a part of it. It's never really over because of interviews or little news clips. And but yeah, I guess for lack of better words, I'm just tired of the whole thing. And court every day, and the last two hearings were exhausting. And so I kind of feel bad for those guys down there because they're just about ready to go through what we went through up here. um, but yeah, there's other things now that are kind of priority, working, and yeah, it's been kind of a breath of fresh air, to be honest with you, not having to worry about trial prep and meeting with attorneys and making sure everything's squared away and ducks in a row. So it's been a breath of fresh air, I think.
Speaking of trial prep, there's a lot of detectives and police officers from Arizona who are on the witness list for the prosecution. How do you guys, just in general, prepare for trial?
No, I think everybody's different, right? You meet with the prosecutor, you go over what he tells you, what he's going to have you testify to. You go over your reports, you go over evidence, you go over every little detail. So you don't have to refer to notes, you don't have to refer to reports when you get on the stand. You should have most of that memorized. With this case, there's so much information depending on what you're going to testify to. I mean, I when I testified, I found it useful to kind of not just go back to what I was testifying to, but go back and review the entire case and the important dates and times and players and get to know everything. So when you're up there, you kind of have kind of a little bit advantage over those questions defense attorneys are going to ask because you know your stuff. So it's going to be a lot of time prep, um, a lot of time with the prosecutors just going over everything. And there's a lot of evidence.
And the defense attorney is going to, in a lot of cases, go after the police. They're going to try to, point out any tiny, dot that isn't I that isn't dot and T that's not crossed, and really try to make you guys look foolish or incapable of doing your job.
Right. And we know that. We know that going in. We know that they're going to attack us, and that's a common strategy. And we don't take it personal. We know it's going to happen. The defense attorneys have their jobs to do. In this case, she has her job to do and try to pick apart a case. So we don't take offense to it. We just make sure that we have everything lined up that we need. And Nate, when I say there were hours and hours and hours of prep time, months ahead of time, and I'm sure those guys down in Arizona are doing the exact same thing. Great detectives, so I'm sure they're going to be well prepared.
So, watching the Dateline interview, did anything stick out? Anything new? Did you walk away like, oh, that's interesting what she said here or there?
Um, no, I find it, you know, she tried to imply that Tylee had accidentally killed JJ, and I just none of the evidence matches, and of course it's not true, but there was really nothing that she said that just always bothers me to hear, and nothing can be further from the truth. But there was nothing she really said to me that stuck out that I really didn't know, or I really wasn't expecting her to answer that way. She pretty much stayed on par with how she's been.
No.